As the founder and chief behavioral scientist for the Lantern Group, Kurt works with companies to bring applied behavioral insights to companies surrounding their employee motivation, engagement, and communication practices. As co-host of the award-winning Behavioral Grooves podcast, Kurt and his co-host, Tim Houlihan, interview some of the brightest researchers and authors to talk about human behavior and decision-making. Kurt has been a Rotarian for 20 years and served in almost every capacity within our club, including International Committee Chair, Club Service Chair, Foundation Chair, and President. Kurt has 2 children who have grown up with Rotary and a wonderful wife, Erin, who will definitely be sainted for putting up with all of his shenanigans. So Kurt, thank you for being our day chair today.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody. One of the things about being a podcast host is that we interview a lot of people and we have to do their introductions at some point in post-production. And if anybody who ever listens to the show knows, I almost always push that off on my co-host because I'm horrible at names and reading things from a script. So hopefully I can do this all right and that this will be okay. So I apologize in advance, Elissa. So today we are super excited to have Elisa Vicuna as our guest speaker. Elissa graduated from the University of Minnesota with a dual BA in Spanish Studies and International Political Economics. She later went on to obtain an MBA and a focus in accounting from the University of Phoenix. She has spent the last 15 years working in risk and compliance through various industries, primarily in the Twin Cities. She is currently a forensic service manager at KPMG. I definitely want to hear what a forensic service manager is, and also serves as an advisor to the Minnesota Aurora Football Club board of directors. Elissa is a founding member of the team and has been involved with the team since its inception. So with that, please give Elissa a welcome, a big Rotary welcome. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me all okay? And thank you, Kurt. It's Elisa. You're fine. It happens all the time. She, her pronouns. As he said, I'm one of the founding members of the board. Well, the board, sorry, excuse me. I have to be very careful with how I say this per my other job. I am an advisory member of the board, but a founding member of the club. So I have a little presentation that I have put together here. We'll click through it fast, then I'll do kind of more of the talking and tell you more about what it took and what it was. And I know there's a few questions because I've already had a couple, so I'm happy to field more. So here is our beautiful crest. This was designed by 3 local women. Actually, one of them is a member of our board. 2 other are designers here in the Twin Cities. We got together with them and they designed this crest, and we had a public vote for it. And this is what the public chose. So this is our Aurora crest. They also chose our name, by the way. So we are the first women's team in Minnesota to be part of the USL W League. The USL W League is launching this season. I believe this weekend is actually the first set of games. We are not playing in our first game for a couple of weeks, but it is a brand new league that came to town. We are one of the 8 founding teams of the USL W League, which now has, I believe, over 42 teams across the US. We will start play next Thursday. So as you can see, this presentation was made a while ago because it was in May 2022. That's so far away. And now it is next Thursday is our first home game. We are a pre-professional league, which is what you would call akin to an amateur league. So our kind of primary target would be players who are in college, who've recently graduated, some of them who are high school going into college. But one of our primary objectives is protecting that amateur status of our players so that they can continue to get scholarships for college and finish that, and then hopefully feed them into a professional league such as the NWSL. Founded by Minnesotans, there's 9 of us who are considered the founding members. In April, I believe it was, of 2022, about 40 of us got together on a patio and said, hey, let's bring a women's soccer team to the Twin Cities. how are we going to do that? What are we going to do? And it kind of whittled down as time went on to 5 of us. And you'll see the 5 of us on a different slide here. And then as we got closer to becoming a reality, we had to outsource for a few specific talents and members that could fill in the gaps of the knowledge and the needs that we had. And that brought us to 9 people. So we are community owned. So we had a very large investment campaign that ran, let me think, it was end of August through December of last year. We have over 3,800 investors in 48 different states, and I believe 5 different countries. So we've got support all around the world. We met and exceeded our funding goals. We had to readjust our initial goal because there was so much interest and so many people who thought that this was a wonderful thing to be bringing to town. So we're happy to see that everybody felt the same way we did. And we'll have 6 home games, all played at TCO Stadium, which is the Vikings training facility down in Eagan. You may have heard of us before. We have been on a lot of the news stations. We've been in all of the newspapers now. And our first player signing was Sarah Fuller. If you're a football fan, you may recognize her as she was the kicker for Vanderbilt. So she came and joined us, and I believe moved up last week. So this is kind of some fun survey stats, right? The 82% of fans agreed that watching soccer is a big part of their family and social life. 97% of respondents watched at least one soccer match per week. So that's a lot of people, right? I know I watch at least one a week, but I might be an anomaly. And 76% have purchased women's sports merchandise in the past year. And I would venture to guess that some of them bought from us. And so there you go. We've got our over 3,000. Oh, sorry. I always invert the 8. Over 3,000 investors. I'm glad I got corrected. You can see the states where we have representation. So it looks like we're missing Delaware and West Virginia. Unfortunately, we can no longer accept any investors, so it will be permanently 48 states. And this thing has a little pointer on it, right? Aha. That scarf there was the one that was designed by the Blackhawks former president. That was a question somebody had for me earlier. So here's our 9 founders. Andrea Yock, Susan Earl, myself, Andrea Carol Frank, Wes Burdine, Matt Pravatsky, Matthew Bergeron, Rob Spence, Allie Rinke. So the 5 of us that started the club would be Andrea Yock, Andrea Carol Frank, Wes Burdine, and Matt Pravatsky and myself. So it was the 5 of us, and then we went out and we needed a pro bono lawyer. Common topic for the day. We needed a CFO. My job requires that I can't be financially involved in something. So despite working for an accounting firm and being a clear choice for a CFO, that would not work out if I wanted to keep my day job. And then we brought in Allie Rinke. She's a former Gopher soccer player. She is actually our brand designer now, and she and I work on all of our merchandise. So anything that you see coming out for the team is something that Allie and I have worked on together. And I always give her the big end of that. She does most of the design and I just do the critique, which is the easy part. And then Rob Spence came on and he did our first scarf. So there you see a picture of our coaching staff, or almost our coaching staff. So you have Andrea Yock in the back, who's the club president. And then you have, starting on the left, Jen Larrick, Nicole Lukic, and Jenny Clark. We have an all-female coaching staff. We have also added a goalkeeping coach, Cassie Ulrich. She worked with Jenny Clark before. And Jenny, since we have a German fan here, played in the Women's Bundesliga. So, and there's our game schedule for this season. So as I said, our first game is on May 26th at 7 p.m. TCO. If anyone's interested, I think there's still tickets available. It's getting down to the wire at this point. Last I'd heard, we had sold 5,500 and we have a capacity of, I think we're capping it at 6,200. So we're very close to sellout. We're hoping, dream big, right? That's the one thing we've learned with this is as big as we have dreamed, it's exceeded our goals, so we can dream a little bit bigger. So yeah. Any questions from anybody about the team? Anything you would like to know specifically about anything that I didn't talk about? Oh, sure. So the cities, and you can kind of tell from the crest, the first one is Kaw Valley, which is Kansas City, I believe. Then you have St. Louis. And then Chicago is our quick little run there. There's two different teams in Chicago. And then Green Bay is this last one that you see here on the end. So we are part of the Midwest group, I believe is what our designation is. And I'll repeat the questions if people say them so everyone can hear them.
I'm sure some people might want to know from what clubs in the Twin Cities area, for example, do you draw talent from? Is that something you can report on?
If I knew all of the stats, yes. I know that we've pulled from MU. I know that we've pulled from Blackhawks. I know we have a couple of current Gopher players. And then we have a slew of different teams that have kind of come in and provided players. So something that's unique to our team and different from others is that one of the barriers that we saw to soccer and to the community of making it more inclusive and diverse was financial barriers. And so one commitment that we made as a team is that unlike other pre-professional and amateur teams, none of our players are paying to play. And we have even designed it in a way where we can help them find housing so that housing is also not a barrier. So that if they can make the team, if they've got the talent to be on the team, they don't have to pay anything to be able to survive and play with us for 8 weeks.
I asked a question earlier when we were just chatting before, but maybe you could share, and I think I understood your answer, but I just said, oh, soccer, are you playing in Allianz Field? So just curious a little more about that and how you guys ended up at the practice facility.
Yeah, so one of the USLW requirements is that we can play all 6 of our games in the same stadium and same field. So we had to do a little bit of research. As some of you may know, there are plenty of soccer fields here in the Twin Cities. It's a question of being able to find one that can accommodate the crowd size that we were anticipating. And also meet the needs of the players. And one of our sponsors is Twin Cities Orthopedics, who also partners with the Vikings and has that wonderful training facility in Egan. And we were able to make a contract with them to be able to play all 6 of our games there, and our players have access to the training facilities there. So these players are getting top of the line training access.
I just wanted to go back to the kind of about the sorry, where they're not getting paid. So they're, and you talked a little bit about college scholarships and things. I'm just a little bit curious about that and how that's kind of playing into the overall trajectory of the club.
Yeah, so for a player to maintain their NCAA eligibility, they cannot be paid to play in any way, shape, or fashion. There has been a new law change that's called name and licensing. So they can receive, money if they make a partnership that's about like their image. So for example, Sarah Fuller has been able to strike up partnerships and be able to sell or not sell, but be able to profit off of money earned off her name and likeness. But the other players cannot be paid by us in any way to maintain that eligibility.
So you said this is the Midwest section of the USLW. So if they win this, how does that work? So are they then going on to what's the next level of playoffs, and what's the ultimate goal for the team?
So after July 9th, the top teams in the league will move into playoffs. So I think there's 8 different subsections around the US. And I will admittedly say this one has not been my focus. So I don't know all of the names of the teams or where all of them are, just the geographic disbursement. But after that, we move into playoffs, and it will go into an ultimate championship between all of the top ranking teams in each of the subdivisions.
Well, first of all, I want to remember to thank you for being here and for promoting this new team. It's fantastic from my standpoint and looking forward to attending your games. Speaking of attending games, while that chart is up there, which ones are home and which ones are away? That was a question that came from our
Yeah,
table.
everything that you see highlighted in teal, which is one of our colors, is a home game. So the 26th, June 10th, June 12th, June 19th, June 24th, they all run right in a row, June 26th. So it's a very quick season because we play almost all of our games in the month of June, our home games in the month of June. And then after that, we move into playoffs.
So apologies in advance if you've already covered both of these.
That's okay.
I don't even know what USLW stands for, if you could do that. And then personally, your soccer story, did you play? So
I would love to tell you my soccer story. USLW is a United States League of Women, and it's supposed to be the United States Soccer League of Women. So there is a male branch as well, and that is a more predominant league. Obviously, with that one having been established, I want to say more than 10 years. I'm not entirely certain on that specific league, but this is the first year for USLW, which we are part of. And then my soccer story, my father is an immigrant. I grew up playing soccer. I've probably been playing as long as I could walk. I kind of took a hiatus when I moved into college and started coaching instead. And then I became a referee and I did amateur men's for a good chunk of time. And then I got tired of adult men yelling at me outside of my regular day job. And then, I took a job transfer to Mexico and came back at the start of the pandemic. And then a couple of us started talking about bringing a women's team here, and welcome to the last 3 years of my life.
Great. We have one question online. Can you talk about the involvement with the community as far as the funding effort, and where did the concept come from your group?
Well, to be able to be, so when we first started, we were looking at which leagues we could be part of. And there are certain restrictions in the different leagues in terms of funding and what you're able to do. So to be able to be an NWSL team, which I think would have been something we all would have loved to do, you have to have a Class A investor. So I think it's somebody who has over $1 million in liquid assets, and none of us qualified. So it was on to plan B. What could our plan B possibly be? And, I made a off the cuff comment once upon a time to Wes Burdine, one of the other founders, about, well, why couldn't we just, community create a team? And so we started looking into that, which leagues would allow us to have this community ownership structure. We'd seen it happen with a few others. There's a team in Detroit and a team in Nashville that have also done this kind of community funding. And so we looked into that. We talked to them, figured out their structure, replicated it, and put out the entrance to the community. If you followed our investment goals, our initial low bar goal was $50,000, because that's what we had assessed. This is the absolute bare minimum that we need to be able to make this team work for a year. Bare bones, absolutely nothing. This is enough to pay our coaches. This is enough to pay for our stadium. This is how we can bring a team in. And our high goal at that time was 300,000. I think we exceeded it in about a week. And so, and maybe less, because I feel like I helped put together the estimates of how much I thought all of this would cost and what it would do. And then the next thing I knew, I was revisiting it and having to readjust my top goal to $1 million instead of 300. So, the community really reinforced the fact that we believe that there is a huge future in women's soccer. So it's been great. More than $1 million. Well, we raised exactly $1 million. We had to turn away investors because we had set it. It is like an SEC regulated investment. So we had a top cap of how many shares that we were able to sell. And once we hit that, we couldn't accept any more investors. And it did go over. And we had, my mom got rejected. She invested too late.
So how does the team come about? How many women are on the team? Is there a preseason? Do you do a draft? How do you find
The
players?
talent. So our coaches are actively doing recruiting throughout the season. So they've been targeting players. We've held multiple different tryouts. I believe our first tryouts were in early January. Then we had another round. I got married in March, so I kind of like zoned out of what was going on in the team for a minute. I think we had another tryout in early March, and then we had one in May, and then there was an invite only training or tryout with our first week of practice with the team for all the other players who had been sourced and signed. So
Just got a news flash from the New York Times. U.S. Soccer and its top men's and women's players have agreed to a landmark labor deals that guarantee equal pay and shared World Cup prize money. Thought you'd like to know.
I am very excited about that news. I think if I go one more slide, for those of you who can't recognize who this is, that's Megan Rapinoe. I was very fortunate to get to meet her. To the right, that is Wes Burdine, and then right next to Megan Rapinoe is Andrea Carol Frank, one of the other founders. Wes owns a bar in St. Paul called the Black Heart of St. Paul, and he commissioned a painting on the side of his building of Megan Rapinoe. And so when she was in town for the women's cup, or not the U.S. women's game in June, I believe it was in June, we found out that she was coming to see the mural, and we got invited out as part of the team. So got to meet her. And I believe that was the day of or the day after they announced equal pay for the women's team. So very well timed. It was very exciting news.
So picking up on the character of the team, your team, tell us a little bit about, first of all, how many players do you have on your team?
26. You would ask that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I missed that. We have 26 hold on, 20, 25, maybe 26. I don't know if she's been announced yet. Whoops.
So tell us a little bit about those. I mean, not all 26, but tell us about a little bit about some of the people, where they're from, how they ended up being a part of the team, a little bit about their background. It's fun for us to know more of the personalities of some of the members.
I will try. I'm going to try and tell you the information that I remember. I don't remember all of their names. I know a good chunk of them have come following one of our coaches, our head coach, Nicole. She did direct recruitment on many of these players that are, top tier players. Some of them we've picked up from tryouts. So we have Sarah Fuller. She is one of our goalkeepers. She's originally from Texas. She was the kicker at Vanderbilt for a little while. We have a player named Crystal Kiwa, I believe is the last name. Sorry, Crystal, if I got your last name wrong. She is a U of M dentistry student, and she used to play on the University of Michigan's team, and she was the captain there. We have triplets. I can't remember all of their names. Because I print their jerseys, so I'm very familiar with their last names. So there's I think it's Christine or Catherine, because it's Cat Rap, and then there is two other raps. I believe that they're local to Minnesota here, though. So we have a few of our players are originally from Minnesota. We have Maria Wynn, who I think was a Blackhawk player. I know that we have one or two MU players, but I can't remember their names specifically. But we have kind of like a whole different background of some of the, we have a couple of high schoolers on our team. We have a good chunk of very talented high schoolers, a good chunk of current student athletes, and then a handful of post-university athletes. So obviously Crystal, who's at the dentistry school, we no longer would have to theoretically protect her NCAA status. But here's the sneaky thing about pre-professional teams. If we pay one player, it invalidates all of the players' eligibility. So none of the players can be paid, even if they aren't trying to protect that status.
So do you sell season tickets? Are there still season tickets available? What's kind of the package for that? And then will you go out for another round of investor fundraising next year? How does that work? And what do you get if you're an investor?
So I believe that investment is closed. I don't know if that's permanently, but we don't have any active plans to reopen investment. You can always get season tickets, which I believe are still for sale. I think that it was something around, I think it's $110 for the season, 90 or 100, somewhere right around in there for the 6 games. You can also buy individual season tickets. We also have merchandise, which I run. Here is one of our sweatshirts that you can no longer get. I'm sorry, I should. We are coming out with a new sweatshirt very shortly that will, knock on wood, be debuted at the home game. We've done a couple of partnerships with different companies in the Twin Cities to produce merchandise. So, small business owners in the Twin Cities who've reached out to us and asked to do one-off merchandise sales, things like that. But those would be the primary ways. In the future, and I'm hoping in the very short future, we're hoping to start doing some community reinvestment things as well. So developmental programs for younger players, trying to fill and build that pipeline to the pre-professional players. So one of our big goals and one of the things that we all really wanted was for this to really be community focused and driven. So we are trying to actively give back to our community and partner with people within our community. So one of our primary merchandise providers is a local Twin Cities company as well. And so we've done very active things and targeted things like that to make sure when we are spending money, it's going to other community members rather than outside of the Twin Cities.
Great. There was a question online from Karen Scott. You kind of just touched on it around the community engagement, but can you maybe be more specific about what that means and then your focus on inclusivity?
Yeah. So our focus on inclusivity, I'm really happy that she asked that question. We are really trying to change a little bit the demographic of soccer in the Twin Cities because it is primarily white, right? And we know that we have a lot of really strong immigrant communities of color that have these skills and have these abilities that far surpass some of the players that we all see, but they run into things like cultural barriers or financial barriers. And we're trying to actively work towards those to break them down and make our team a place where everybody feels welcome and everybody feels included and able to kind of express who they are and express their culture and bring that to the team and make it a richer environment.
Great. Any other questions in the room? Yep, Jean.
I'm curious about for a soccer player, what is their journey? Like if they play in high school, then what's likely to happen to them after that? What are their options? And for your players, then what might they go on to? How many of them have something to go on to? And how you see that maybe changing in the future as women's soccer becomes more, even more popular?
Yeah. So that was one of the things that we were really focused on and wanted to work on was, like I said, building that pipeline, right? Because so for me, I'm willing to admit it, I am not one of the top 1% players of soccer. And 20 years ago, when I graduated from high school, if you weren't in that 1%, your career was done. So, I had weak knees. I was like, I'm not going to go play in college because I'm going to tear my ACL. A newsflash, I tore it at 29 playing recreational soccer. So did I win out on that one? I'm not sure. But it was essentially, when I graduated from high school, it was essentially you made a college scholarship and then maybe you were done unless you were really so good that you could play on the national team. And I mentioned my father. I have much more affiliation to Chile, which is where my dad is from, as a team than the US. And there wasn't a women's team there until about 10 years ago. So, in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not going to play for the US, even if I am good enough to make that team. So, it's just a different mindset, I think, but there were very limited opportunities. And now in the last 5 to 10 years, you've started to see that change and grow, right? So we have the NWSL, which is the National Women's Soccer League, which is essentially the female equivalent of the MLS here in the US. You're seeing all the Bundesliga clubs and the English Premier League clubs come out with feminine teams as well. Even in Liga MX down in Mexico, they have, you know, feminine teams as well now. And so you're seeing kind of that opportunity open, but what there really lacks is that in-between development. So it's either, you know, high school, college, and then you can place on one of these. And then, but there's a lot of talent that we think gets missed in that college scholarship or that college athlete move. And so what we're trying to do is build a place where these players can go and develop themselves more past just their high school career to hopefully put them into those professional leagues and give those professional leagues a bigger, stronger pool of players.
Great. So question, where do you guys practice? And you said you were just moving into an office space?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We also practice at TCO. So that was one of the, one of the benefits of being out there. It's a turf field, which any of you soccer enthusiasts will know, not the best, not your favorite option. Turf is actually known to be somewhat dangerous, specifically for women for tearing ACLs. So, but it's good to be able to practice on the field and be aware of it and know what challenges you have. And then, yes, we just opened on an office in downtown St. Paul, which all of us are very excited about because if you've never seen how big 1,000 scarves is in terms of space, my husband was very happy that we got our front porch back. So all of our merch and all of our operations are now in a central place. We don't have to find somebody's house who's available. We don't have to, take up my entire living room and basement with t-shirts and sweatshirts and scarves or tents, any of the other merchandise or items that you need when you're putting together a team or some type of event are all showing up at no longer showing up at my house. They're not going to the office.
And merch is available on your website?
Merch is available on our website. It's also available at any of our home games. You can come look for my friendly face. I will be there up until about 30 minutes before most game days start. And then I get to escort the kids and the little kids that escort the players out onto the field. I get to help with that. So I will leave at that point.
Do these players sign a contract and are they then committed to the team for a specified period of time, or is there a lot of mobility?
They are committed to the team through the 8-week season. So afterwards, there's no, so if they sign with us this year, they don't have to come back and play with us next year. Nothing of that sort. But once they've committed to our team, they are with us for the duration of the season, barring, any injuries or things like that. So.
And are the coaches under contract longer?
Yes. Yes. We're trying to keep Nicole forever.
Any other questions? Oh.
Do you have like insurance coverage for the players?
Yes. Yes, we do. We have all sorts of insurance. We have stadium insurance. We have property insurance. We have, I thought that I knew a lot about insurance, and boy, did I not. So we've got insurance for them in all sorts of ways because we have to cover the stadium. We have to cover when they're not at the stadium, but doing events. We have to cover our office. We move our merchandise. Yep. We have to protect them for that. We have to protect our merchandise from in transit too, which I didn't realize was such a big deal, but apparently it is. So lots of different forms of insurance. But yes, our players have been our primary focus in making sure that they have a safe, secure, and stable environment for the team. So they've been our number one focus throughout all of this. And we're trying to really design this experience so that the players have the best experience possible. And then fans.
What about trainers and physicians and disability coverage or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. We have trainers through TCO, so one of our sponsors. So they are providing the trainers and the physicians for the team. And we have a female trainers and female physicians.
If the players aren't being paid at all to do this, what do they do when they're not playing soccer?
Well, some of them are coaching. Some of them have other jobs as well. So we are doing an active job to kind of coordinate with them so that they can, if they need to have a full-time job during the summer to support themselves, that they can also have time to be able to do that and dedicate to that. I know that our coaches make exceptions. If you have to miss practice because your job or your internship for the summer is requiring you to be somewhere else, they make those on a case-by-case exception. But we, as I said, we also have a dentistry student. I think we have a couple of other master's students as well. So some people are studying, some people are working, some girls are having hot girl summer, right? So to each their own.
Great. Any other questions in the room? Not seeing any in the room or online. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And so before you go, big round of applause. In lieu of the big speaker gifts that we used to give out, we now have you sign this book, which will go to a third grader and through a program called Way to Grow. And so that they get a book that is signed by a community leader that they can have for their own. We'll let you do that. And then we'll take that back and we'll give it to them. But then you'll get to keep this bookmark. And the bookmark is from Haiti. We do a lot of work with schools and various different things down there. And so they have created a bookmark and that you get to keep in as a memory of this. So thank you, Elisa.
Yeah, I did want to mention, my dad used to be a Rotary president. So I was very excited when I saw this request come in because obviously he's still alive. I'm just an emotional person. But it made that tie back to like, this is what my dad used to do in my hometown community, and seeing it still like thriving and flourishing in the Twin Cities where I live is wonderful.
All right,
So,
fantastic.
thank you.
I'm sure all the past and future Rotary presidents can just really identify with your dad's job. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. What a great presentation. Next week, we have vocational roundtables, so you aren't going to want to miss that, your opportunity to discuss various vocational issues. I want to thank David Wheeler for that great reflection. And again, happy birthday, David. Kurt, thank you so much for being our day chair. Thank you to Dean Sandberg for being our greeter today. Ross and Greg, thank you so much for all your technical expertise with the AV. You all have a great Rotary week.